In this video, we'll take a look at the admin side interface for Delta Pitch. Delta Pitch is Delta Media Group's CMA Builder, or really Presentation Builder product. So first off, to get to it on the admin side, we're going to go down to Marketing and Delta Pitch, and this takes us to the main Delta Pitch landing page. So from here, we can take a look at the Drafts tab. Now these would be all template drafts that you've started but haven't quite finished. So this is any draft that was created on the admin side that just wasn't finished out enough yet that it was worth saving as a template. So you can see all your drafts here, and then from here you can either click on one of these and it will open it up in the editor interface. There we go, where you can start making changes to it and updating it, and then ultimately resave it as a template, or resave it as a draft if you didn't finish it yet. And the other thing you can do, here we'll head back to the Delta Pitch interface, in addition to opening up those templates and further modifying them to ultimately save them as templates, you can delete them from here as well. So you just click that trash can icon. The next piece we have here is the Templates tab. Under Templates, these are actual company templates that have been completed and are ready for use by the agents. So in looking through these, you can see a few are marked as red, so really the additional thing you can do on this interface is you can control the availability or access that agents have to these templates. So once you've completed one and saved it as a template, you can see you have this little toggle access icon on here. Now, at the time you save it, it will be visible to all the agents, and then if you go into this interface and you click this toggle access button, it will become invisible. And then if I click it again, you can see I can just toggle that on and off as I choose. And then likewise, just like the drafts page, I can click on any of these, and that will take me into the interface where I can, continue modifying it and continue updating this template if I do want to make any changes to it. And from there, I can either save it and I can overwrite the template here, or I can actually save it as a new template from there. So the next thing we can do here is we can create our own template from scratch. So if I click Create Your Own, it'll just take me into the main interface, and from there I can build out my pages and ultimately save those as a draft or a template. And we'll take a closer look at that here in a minute. The next thing I can do is I can create from PDF. This allows me to choose a PDF on my computer that I can upload, and even with a multi-page PDF, the system will actually take each page of the PDF and flatten it down into basically a background image for each page of my report, or my report template that I'm building for Delta Pitch. Now, it's worth noting there that because it is a flattened image, it will look like the source object, but it won't recognize things like text. That can be beneficial if you're using some fonts in your PDF that maybe aren't available in Delta Pitch. However, you won't be able to map any of those fields. So the idea is if you do want to create a CMA report, what you would have to do is click Create from PDF, upload your PDF. Let's say you already have a 20-page template that you use, so you could upload your 20-page PDF, and then you could delete any of the pages that have map data on them and recreate them in Delta Pitch for things like the comps and the subject property pages and things like that. And we'll get into the details of this as we go forward as to how each of those pages are created. Now the next thing we can do is we can control the rollout of Delta Pitch. So if I click on Control Rollout, it opens an interface here that allows me to turn it on and off at the whole company level. So if this is set to yes, that means all agents have access to Delta Pitch. But if I only want to roll this out to specific users or users in specific offices, I could set this to no, and then use this search by name functionality to type in an individual's name or an office name, and then select them from the list, and that would be the only person that has access to Delta Pitch. So we'll close this out. Keep in mind that that does affect the CMA request form on the AVM pages on the public site as well. So with Delta Pitch enabled at the company level, that means if someone uses the What's My Home Worth functionality on your home page to get to an AVM page, there will be a form on that page that allows them to request a CMA. And what that does is it uses this system to automatically build a CMA based on their property address. What this allows, or by turning it off on this Control Rollout interface and actually setting this to no, it removes that page from that form. And the idea is that with this system off, the system can't automatically generate the CMA, hence it turns off the form that would trigger that. So we'll close that back out again. And the next piece we have here, if we click on Settings, and we'll add more settings here as we go, but at this point, the only setting you have here is the ability to force the comps customization step. So what that means is, on the agent side, and we have an agent side video that goes over exactly how the system functions on the agent side. But on that side, when you enter a property address and you click Create CMA, it by default will take you directly to the completed CMA report with some pre-selected comps based on criteria that's kind of close to that of your subject property. If you toggle this on, that will instead force the agent to land on the comps customization step of delta pitch before it takes them to their report. So basically it drives them through the step where they have to actually search for and select comps before they can continue on to their report, instead of just using the automatically selected comps and then letting them customize from there if they choose. So we'll close this out. Now, as I said, create your own will open a completely blank interface. So we'll go ahead and click on that, and you can see we have a completely blank template interface, so we could go in and start designing our templates from here. Now you can see we're on page 1. If we click down here, you can see there is only one page. However, I can click this plus sign, add another page. You can see now I've got 2, plus, 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 and I can very easily just add a bunch of pages that way. And then go through and start building out each page from scratch. Now we'll go through the details of the specific kinds of pages. Now the important thing about this, especially when working from the admin side and creating a template for your agents from the admin side, is that delta pitch needs to have, or each delta pitch template needs to have very specific page types attached to it in order to be able to map the data properly. So what this comes down to is you'll have to be able to build a subject property page. So this is a page that will populate with the data from the subject property. I'll show you how to build a testimonials page. So this would be a page that allows agents to go in and select their testimonials that'll display on that page. There is a comps list page. So for the comps pages that actually list out multiple properties, we'll see there's a specific way that those need to be set up. And then there's also a featured comps page. So it's basically the same thing. It shows comps, but it only shows a single comp featured on that page instead of multiple. So we'll walk through how to select or how to create each of those different page types so that you can really create a full featured report. So in the meantime, we're going to go back to the delta pitch main interface, and if I click create from PDF, just to give you an example of exactly how that looks, and we just select a PDF from our computer, you can see that now it's processing, and when it finishes, it'll take us into the interface with that entire PDF pulled in and flattened into individual pages for the entire report. So here we are. Now you can see this has nothing to do with a CMA. This is just a PDF that I had available, but it demonstrates the idea. So here we are on page 1. This is the PDF flattened into kind of a background image, and you can see that this is actually 18 pages, and it pulled in every page as its own page in the report and recreated it reasonably faithfully. And now, because these are images, you can see we have some options over here for adjusting the different images within Creative Studio. Now, the size of these images didn't exactly match up with the size that Creative Studio expects, or rather the CMA version of Creative Studio for the delta pitch templates. So that's why there's a little bit of a white space, a little bit of a gap there at the top. But you can see overall, it can pull those in, and that can be a nice, quick way that I can put in all of the pages from an existing CMA to at least cover my static content pages. Now this wouldn't be great, like I said, if this was a completed CMA and you wanted to create the comps pages and the featured or subject property pages and the featured comps pages and everything from this, it's not going to handle that mapping. But for all of your static pages, it can save you a whole lot of time. So we'll back out of this and we'll go ahead and create a new one from scratch. So we're going to create your own. And that gives you an idea already from the PDF import as to how you can create the static pages. So I won't get into the details of the design elements that are available here when it comes to creating these pages. Just know that everything that is available within Creative Studio, or any of the guides we have out there on how to use Creative Studio and what to do there, will give you the information you need to build out the static pages. And really it just comes down to selecting content, selecting different elements from over here, and inserting those into your design. So if I wanted a square, I can go over here and elements, and we'll pick a square. So you can see there's a square in our design now. So we'll make that a little bit bigger, or a lot bigger as the case may be. And we can change the fill color on that. We'll just switch it to another color. And now we'll head back over here to elements. We'll choose an image to add here. So let's see, we want an image of a nice home. There we go. So you can see it drops that image into our design. So we'll, and really you can just to give you the idea here. It really just comes down to, you know, your creativity, what it is that you want to build in here. So I'd add a text element. Make that fit, and there we go. So you get the idea. You can lay out different objects in here. You just click on them from over here in the options on the left. That brings them over here, and then you'll notice when you select any object, these options up here change. And those options allow you to control different aspects of the object you have selected. So because this is a text object, you see I have text alignment options and font size, things like that. And down here, because this is a square, just a square object, then I have different options available to me as far as adjustments go. So that would be just the very, very basics of how you can use the Creative Studio functionality to create the static content pages. So now we'll move on to page 2. So we're going to create another page. And here we're going to create the subject property page. So in order to do that, we need to put some elements on this page, and we need to link those elements to listing data. So to do that, now there's kind of a couple of ways we can go about it. The easiest way is to use an existing listing. So if we click on listings here, we'll go ahead and find a listing that will work for us. That wasn't a good one. Let's try that again. There we go. So once we select the listing we want, you see we can click this arrow to expand all the listing data here. And the nice thing about doing it this way is any of the items that I pull in from here, any of these elements, will already be mapped for me. But I'll show you how to do it both ways. So for our subject property page, let's say we want to put the property image up top. So we'll go ahead and click on the image. There we go. So you can see that inserts the image into our design. So we'll scroll down a little bit. We'll go back to our listings tab, and we want to put the address in here. So let's go down location. Let's do full address. We'll just drop that in. There we are. Maybe we'll make it centered. Yeah, we have options to change colors and things in here. So you can see all your company colors will be laid out for you up at the top. Just makes them a little bit easier to get to. And then we also have some preset colors, and you can even choose from custom colors here. So you can make the colors whatever you need to. You have your font items here, so you can just click on font, select the font you want to use. So you have options available there as well. Now we'll go back over to listings, and let's say we also want to bring in bedrooms, bathrooms, so we'll do bedrooms with a label, bathrooms with a label, and acres. There we go. Now this isn't a very good design. You don't have to tell me that. However, this gives you the idea. So one thing that's important about each of these fields that are mappable like this is that you give them some extra space in here. And what I mean by that is you can see this red outline is showing us how big the bounding box is for this. Now what will happen is if someone connects a subject property to this that has a full address that is longer than the boundary box, it'll cause it to wrap down to the next line like that, which, depending on how you've laid out your other fields, can really break your design. So what you can do is just extend this as far as you're willing to let that address go. And by doing so, it gives you some extra room in case larger data gets mapped into that field. Really, the same goes for email addresses. If you're putting the agent's email address in here, phone numbers, well, not so much phone numbers, but more email addresses, website addresses, addresses, the things that really can vary as far as the total character length. So I loaded in some listing data. Now I could continue to grab listing data from here until my heart is content, and I could pull as much from here as I'd like. But you'll notice that because I'm pulling them in from here, if I right-click on this image, for example, and I click Connect, you can see it is connected to listing image 1, so it's already connected for me. The same goes for the rest of these fields. If I right-click on the address, listing full address. So what's important about that is if I had just typed in some text, so if I had just gone over here, clicked on text, and said this should be a listing address. So there we are. So I've inserted some text, and I've just made that text whatever I want. If I right-click on it and go to connect, it's not connected to anything. So that means that when the subject property is added to this report, this text will stay exactly the same. It will always be this static text. Whereas if I click connect and I make it the listing address, or really anything that starts with listing in here will map to the appropriate field if we have the data for it, and save it. Now, if I pull up this report and I attach a subject property to it, this will actually change to the listing address. And this will change to the listing full address because it's already mapped. So that gives you an idea of how you can map the data. So basically anything on this page that you, or not just on this page, but anything in this template that you put in here and you map to a listing data field will pull that data from the subject property listing if you don't do anything else to it. And I'll get to that here in a minute. That has to do with the comps pages specifically. So, but this is how you would set up a subject property page. You would lay out all your information here. You would map up all those fields. You can put whatever graphical elements here that you choose. Just know that anything that you link to another field with this right click and connect, or that you drag in from a listing so that it's already connected, are things that will automatically be mapped to the subject property data. So we'll move on to page 2. Actually, we're already on page 2. We'll move on to page 3. There we go. Now the same thing works for an agent page. So if I wanted to create a page, or really any element within like a static page that I want to feature agent information, the process is essentially the same. So if I go over here, we'll click on agents, and I will find an agent account in here. We'll expand it in the same way, and we'll say in this case we want the agent photo, so we'll click on that. Who's that handsome devil? There we go. And we'll go back over here to agents, and we're going to add display name. You can see, because I'm pulling it from, just like with the listing address, because I'm pulling it from a real account, it automatically pulls in what that data should be. And if I right click and go to connect, already connected to agent photo. We'll go back in here. We're going to add a phone. And let's add an email address as well. There we go. So there we go. Now already these fields are mapped for me, so I can add whatever other static text boxes or content or graphical content or elements I'd like to add to this page. But all of these mapped fields will be mapped to the agent data whenever an agent actually uses this template. So it'll automatically pull in all of their data and populate this picture and name and everything with that agent's information. Now the next kind of page we can make before we get, I won't delete my page. So we're on page 3, let's make a page 4. So this kind of page is a testimonials page. So in order to set up a testimonials page, we can go over here to text and we can actually select from testimonials here if we had any testimonials to search for. But generally when you're creating this on the admin side, you're not going to be pulling from testimonials, so you'll just use the text fields. So to do that, I'm going to click on this box here. We'll click on text to add a new text element, and we'll say Sally Seller. That's going to be the name of our person granting this testimonial. And we'll insert that here. There we go. And now we'll say that we'll click on an open field here so that we don't overwrite our Sally Seller information. And we'll say this was a great transaction. Now all I'm doing here is I'm inserting text elements for whatever placeholder I want to put for these testimonials. So from here, I can take these testimonials and we'll connect that. Now this was testimonial review, so you can see as I start typing it auto-completes for me to make this a little bit easier. But it is testimonial review is the actual bulk of the testimonial itself. So we'll save that, there we go. And then the person who left the testimonial, we'll right click and connect that one as well. And that one is testimonial name, because that is the name of the person that gave the testimonial. Now I could also, as you noticed, I could do a star rating there as well. So we'll just right click on that and connect. So if I said testimonial rating, it'll put a numerical rating there. Now in this case I didn't make a spot for that, but just know that that's available to you as well. So we'll close that out. So now this is the testimonial name and this is the testimonial content. Now the important thing here is that you don't want the same testimonial over and over again on a page, because that's what we would be looking at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that field, and I'm going to hold down the Control key, or the Command key in this case, because I'm using a Mac. You could also use the Shift key, but whatever you hold down when you click on the other field, it selects both of those fields. And now we can click on the Group button over here. So there we go. Now if I select my testimonials group, you can see over here, we have group name, no association. We're going to make it a testimonial group. So now, the way the system will interpret this is when it loads up this page and the agent uses this template and they click the button to edit this page, it knows that a testimonial is supposed to go here, and so it will allow them to select from their testimonials to choose what testimonial will populate this section. And now very easily, if I want to make more of these, and generally you do for testimonials, we'll select the whole group, we'll click copy, paste, and we've got another one. Paste again. Paste again. We can do this all day. So now we have 4 testimonials fields, and if we click on each of these, click on select my group, there we go, you can see that they're all set as a testimonial group. So the system will know that these are supposed to be testimonials, and that's what it will allow the agent to put there. Now you can see that we can also set the page type, and we'll get into the details on that here in a moment. And actually, one thing I'll add before we get into that too deeply is that you can set the name of every one of these pages. Now that can be particularly useful because if an agent is looking to add an individual page to their report, so let's say they've loaded up a report using one template, but they want to take a couple of pages from another template, the pages that the system gives them access to are based on the templates that are saved. So basically, every page within a saved template is available for them to choose as a page, except for the comps pages, is available for them to choose as a page and add to their other report. So if you put a name here, that will actually show a name for each page in the interface, which just makes it a little bit easier to choose from those pages. So, moving on, the next kind of page we'll make is a comps list page. So I'm going to click the plus sign here. There we go. So in this case, we're going to start off by adding the listing data in exactly the same way we did before. So I'm going to go over here to listings. We'll stick with the same listing because why not? So let's add our picture. Now one thing worth noting here is that I chose photo 1. So if I go back over here to listings, this first one in line is photo number 1. So that means that is the first photo we have for this picture. And they will map up accordingly. So if you look at a public or a listing on your public website, for example, and you click the next button to scan through each of the photos that it has, the order that those are in there is retained here. So if I chose photo 5, it would map photo 5 of whatever comp listing I put on this page. So it's worth noting. And we'll go ahead and add a couple of pictures just to really build out this page. So I'll make this a little bit bigger here. I don't want to get too, oh, we saw the other one selected. There we go. Add another one. Now, I don't want to get too in-depth with the design because it would be easy to go overboard here. But there we go. We'll put in another, just a little tiny one. And listings, we'll add in photo 3. There we go. This wouldn't make for a very good report because the pictures are so tiny you can't see them. But it gives you an idea what you can do. So now we have a few photos in here. Now we'll grab some listing data the same way we did before. So we're going to say address. There we are. And let's do city and state as well. We'll resize our fields here a bit. And back over to listings. And you can see we have a variety of information we can pull from here as well. So advanced information. You can click see more on any of these sections to expand how much information you have available. So let's say we want to keep the MLS ID with label and we want to have the price on there as well. And just not to go too overboard, we'll leave it at that at this point. So there we go. So now that we have all these in here, just like with the testimonials, we now have to group these. So we're going to select each of these photos here. Now the way we're going to do it is we're going to group this in sections. You can see that if I select these objects, it actually covers my other object here. In order to prevent it from doing that, I'm going to select these and we're going to group those. Now we're going to select our group. Actually, we'll select each of our data fields here and then select our group and group all of those together. And now we'll select our missing Ohio field there, and then select our whole group and group that. So you see we kind of grouped it in blocks like that, but ultimately we want to group all these fields together. Now that they're grouped, much like with the testimonials, if I select this group you can see it opens up our group properties page. And if I want this to populate with active listing data, I'll select active listing group. Now, I kind of glossed over it, but as I added these fields, because I added them from listing data, each of these fields was already mapped. So I did have to map all of these, like this was mapped to photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, listing address. But as we saw on the other page, because I pulled those in from a listing, they were already mapped, so I didn't have to do that. So I've now changed this group to an active listing group. Now, just like with testimonials, I can select my group. You can see I already have it selected. Copy, paste, and now we have another group just like it. And we'll paste another one. Now, comps pages, the comps list pages at this point do support 3 groups, or really 3 listings, is kind of how that translates when you open the report up. So that is something that is worth keeping in mind as you build these out. So now we have our 3 comps selected, but we have one additional step because this is a comps page. Now you can click on each of these. We did set them as active listing groups, but we also have to define this page as an active listings comps page. So to do that, what I've done is clicked on the page, but not on any of the elements. So it doesn't matter where I click as long as I'm not selecting something. So you can see I selected that, so my options change. So we'll just do that, just kind of click off of there. And that brings up this properties button up here. And if I click on that, it opens up our page properties, where we can set up that page name as we saw on the last page. And now card type, we are going to tell the system that this is an active listings page. So it is active listings comps groups that it should find on this page. And then that is what the system will find because we set that as an active listing group. So that is all there is to it. Now you do exactly the same thing. You would set up pages in exactly the same way. Except if these were pending, if you wanted this to be a pendings comps page, then you would select this and you would make it a pending listing group, and you would make the page itself, if we go back to the page properties, a pending listings page. And you can do the same for solds. So that is how those are set up. That's the distinction there as far as setting up those comps pages. So the next thing we'll add is the featured comps page. So one thing you can do in Delta Pitch is when you select the comps to include in your report, you can include them as included, which just means it'll include them on a list page like this, or you can include them as featured. If you include them as featured, they will get their own page, basically. So to set up one of those pages, we actually set it up in exactly the same way we set up the subject property page. See, there's our testimonials page. There's my agent page. So we'll go back to page 2. So all I did to create this page was I chose a listing and I started dragging listing data onto the page. For this page, you don't do any grouping, anything like that. You just need to populate it with listing data. Once you have it populated with elements that are mapped to listing data, you just go back to your page properties and you set the card type to detail listings page. So if, for example, I wanted to set up a featured page that looked exactly like my subject property page, only it's featuring comps instead of my subject property, one quick way I could do that is we'll just select my picture. I'll select each of the data fields here. So now I have all those selected, and I will group those. Now I'll select my group and copy it, and then we'll create a new page. You can see I just hit the plus sign down here by my page list. And now we'll click paste, and now there's all my data. Now one important thing if you do use that trick is to remember to ungroup those when you're done. And to do that, we just click this ungroup button, and now all those fields are ungrouped, and we'll have to go back to our other page here. There's our subject property page, and we will ungroup those as well. So now we'll go ahead and, just to avoid any confusion, we're going to make this subject property page. So now we've named our page, so now it'll be easier for us to identify if we need to. So let's open back up our page 6. Now the last thing that I need to do in order to make this page the featured comps page instead of just the subject property page is go into the page settings, and you can see that disappeared when I selected this page. Essentially the other one was still selected. So I click on this page, edit properties, and I want to change the card type to detail listings page. And we'll call this featured comps page. And there you have it. So that is how I can create those featured comps pages. And the way the system will work is because I have set the page up in this way, when I do use, or when one of my agents uses Delta Pitch to create a CMA, when they select their CMAs and they select comps to be included and comps to be featured, this template will know where to put all that data and what pages to create and populate with that data in order to fill out my report. now that you've created your template, and we'll assume that we have put all of our static pages in here, but basically now we've created a template that has a subject property page, an agent featured page, and keep in mind that doesn't have to be its own page, and the same goes with the subject property. Basically, any property data and any agent data that is mapped on the report, or mapped on any page that is not a page that has a specific page type, is going to use the agent, the actual creating agent's information, as well as the subject properties data. So that's kind of an important distinction, because you can take subject property information and you can put it on any page anywhere in the template, whereas the comps page information is only going to show on the comps specific pages. So it's kind of a neat way to look at it, just as you're building these out, to kind of make things make sense. So anyway, as you have built out all these pages, so let's say you've built out all of our subject pages, or rather all of our additional content pages and everything, and we're ready to save our report. We'll go up here to the top, and you can see we have an option to save as. So we'll click on Save As. We can now give it a title. There we are. That's a terrible title. Let's change that. Demo Report 1. That's probably better. So from here, I can save this as a template, or I can save it as a draft. So we'll go ahead and save this one as a draft, because we're clearly not finished with it. And we'll click Save. And there we are. So now that one's saved up. So now if we go back to Delta Pitch, or back to the main page rather, it'll warn us here, but we're going to leave because we did save. And if we go over to drafts, you can see that here is our demo report 1. So we'll go ahead and click on that. So here's our page 1 we made. You can see we have all 6 pages, so we can cycle through each of those, and there's our report, still all set to go. So now let's say we've made our additional changes and we're ready to actually set this live. I mean, we're kind of not for this one, but let's say that we are. We've loaded up our report and made our changes. We'll click on Save As, and this time, instead of saving it as a draft, we'll save it as a template. Save, and there we go. So now this is a template. So now if we go back to our Delta Pitch main page, we're already on our Templates tab, and you can see right here is Demo Report 1, all ready to go. Now also, as I explained earlier, it is visible to agents at this point, but if I click that Toggle Access button, that turns red, and this template's no longer visible to agents. And then if I wanted to delete it, I would just click our trash can icon here, and that would delete this template. So there you have it. That is how you can go into Delta Pitch, and you can use it to create company-specific templates that you can make available to your agents to use for their CMAs. As you can see, there's a lot that I didn't get into when it comes to the depth of the kind of designs you can really create in here, especially for the static pages. But this is enough to get you into the special functionality that's kind of required for a complete CMA template. So at this point, my best advice is to get into the Creative Studio interface for Delta Pitch under this Create Your Own button, and just start using the tools and see what you can build. So, thanks a lot. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to send an email to support@deltagroup.com, or give us a call and we can help you out with this or whatever else you need. Thanks.